Good morning, folks. I'm Jim Shroyer, host of That's My Farm. Glad you're with us this morning. We're in western Sedgwick County today. We're going to be talking with Kent Winter about his family operation, the different crop rotations, and he'll be with us in just a moment, so stay with us. Yeah.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress, powered by Kansas farmers.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Good morning. Welcome to That's My Farm. And folks, we're in luck because we're in Sedgwick County and we're on the Kent Winter farm right now west of Wichita. And with us we have Kent Winter. Kent, good to see you again. And we're going to be spending a little time chatting with you about your crop rotations. But first, I'd like to have you tell us a little bit about how the farm operation got started. And I know you have a little treat for us here, a little history lesson. And then we'll talk a little bit about crop rotation here, this first segment. So Kent, take it away.
I happen to be fourth generation here in Sedgwick County, along with my wife, who's also fourth generation. My great-grandfather moved down here in the 1890s from Pottawatomie County, Kansas, near the community of Flush. It was in what was called the Rock Creek Drainage District. And the story that's been passed down for all these generations is they got tired of farming the rocks, so they were looking for another place to call home and to farm. And as evidence of that, there is a large red boulder on display in the city park at Wamego with a plaque underneath that says that thing came from the farm of John Winter, my ancestor. Somehow in 1907 they were able to get wheels underneath it and get it into town.
So how about here? So you're how many generations here in Sedgwick County? 4, you say?
So I'm fourth generation here in Sedgwick County. My grandparents moved onto this place in 1919. And my dad was raised here and I was raised here. And every now and again I have evidence that we weren't the first folks here.
Right.
I bend over and pick something up, and this is evidence that there was a whole generation of people, a whole culture of people way before us that made their living off of the land here as we do now.
So you were telling me earlier that some of these are in that 350 range years ago, and then there's one here that up here about 11 o'clock. That's how old?
Most of these points are the woodland points, 300 to 700 years old. The one at 11 o'clock is considered to be a McKean point, and an anthropologist on staff at Wichita State University told me that point is 5,000 years old. It was found in the same general vicinity as the other points. It was basically, I believe, used as a seasonal hunting camp on some high ground that overlooks the local creek.
Right. I bet they didn't have any herbicide-resistant pigweed at that time, but they had a lot of other problems worse than that. So, Kent, I tell you what, that's really interesting about your history and the previous owners or passerbys on your ground. We've got to take a word from our sponsors here in just a second, so stay where you are, and we'll be right back, folks, after these words from our sponsors.
This hog is head over hoof for meal made from U.S. soybeans. Now, one hog isn't that impressive, but suppose we add another, and another, and another. Before long, you've got billions of hungry customers around the world all clamoring for the same thing. Our soybeans. Learn more about the billion-dollar appetite of animal agriculture at BeyondTheElevator.com. Brought to you by America's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Buying a car shouldn't be this hard. And at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego, it isn't. It's actually awesome. Whether you want a new or used car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. Even if you want to custom order a new car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. See Toby's team at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're awesome. Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
National Bank Ag Professional. You'll be in good company. They'll help you track expense lines, manage variable input costs, assess ground agreements, pick a crop protection plan. These times demand ag professionals. Central National Bank. You could profit from what they know. Ag operations run better on Central Time.
Central National Bank. Money for life.
Member FDIC in your hometown since 1884.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer. We're in Sedgwick County, and we got Kent Winter here, and he's going to talk us through about your crop rotation, and we'll get more into crops. So, Kent, tell me what's your overall crop rotation. I know you've got some irrigated as well.
Half my acres, Jim, are in wheat, and with the that's on the dryland portion.
Right.
And I rotate those acres with dryland grain sorghum, dryland corn, dryland alfalfa, and dryland soybeans. So we try to stay in wheat 2 or 3 years and then rotate over to one of the fall crops, just depending on the history of the ground and what works good for us. Normally when we rotate to soybeans after wheat, we're doing it no-till. We're going in standing stubble, and we've got the finger openers on our planter, and we can come in and do that. The finger openers throw the trash out to the side and cleans the strip for the seed operation to do its thing. So the seed can be dropped without bulldozing and pushing a bunch of trash ahead of the openers. Same way with grain sorghum, we can rotate double crop grain sorghum
after wheat.
After wheat. But we also, in addition, we do have full season grain sorghum and full season soybeans, and we also have full season dryland corn. And we also have alfalfa in our rotation here. Alfalfa's been around basically with all the generations of winters that have lived here. So it was primarily wheat, and then they had alfalfa, mainly to support the livestock operation. And then in the 50s, my dad started incorporating dryland grain sorghum into the rotation also.
Right. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about wheat. That's half your acres. When do you like to plant? How many varieties do you use? So just give us a little bit of history on wheat here.
When it comes to wheat, I've had awful good luck the last few years with Everest. And since we have an option of using foliar fungicide now in the spring, I've restricted my acres to just Everest the last few years and have been getting along fine with that. I may go back to incorporating some other varieties in the future.
You kind of got hurt with Everest this year, right?
Well, everything was starving for moisture this last spring.
Right.
So, but when it comes to the wheat, as far as my planting date, I don't like to plant early. I like to wait till, say, second, third week of October to plant. And also this time of the year, we're gathering soil samples. We're trying to determine if I have any carryover nitrogen. We're making some decisions on how much nitrogen to put down ahead of sowing. Normally we put down about 40 units of nitrogen.
Okay, and then follow it with top dress later on?
Followed with top dress usually in January with maybe 30 units or so in a liquid form along with a herbicide.
Okay, I've got the high sign here that we need to take a break, so Kent, don't go away. And you folks at home, we'll be right back after the words from these sponsors.
American innovation is being driven in places you might not expect by people like Brent Hayek, an Oklahoma family farmer, who recently set a world land speed record in a Ford Super Duty pickup truck powered by renewable B20 biodiesel. Advanced performance is here, now, putting America on the fast track to more jobs and energy independence. Biodiesel, America's advanced biofuel.
Now another gardening tip with Annette Jackson.
Fall is a great time to plant trees, shrubs, and perennials. Root development this fall means more growth with less watering next year. For faster root growth, always use Fertilome Root Stimulator. It is the only stimulator which contains IBA rooting hormone. Use Fertilome tree and shrub food after the plant has been planted for a month.
Save 25% now on Jackson's homegrown hardy perennials. Let Jackson's friendly staff help you select the best plants for your landscape.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back, folks, to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer. We're in Sedgwick County, and we're on the Kent Winter Farm, and look who we have. We have Kent Winter here. Kent, thank you for staying with us here. We talked about, using one variety and then the fungicide. Of course, Everett's susceptible to a lot of things now. And let's talk more about those fungicides. When do you don't just use the fungicide all the time, but when do you really home in on a fungicide?
We feel like anytime we're following corn with wheat, we have to be really conscious about the scab potential there.
Exactly.
So we take a real hard look at using a fungicide at a certain time there in the spring, where the proper time to be putting it on. And we've had good luck with that, and we put it on. We've used it for the last several years here. Even this past spring where it was so dry, we felt like we'd better go ahead and get it put on, especially on the one particular wheat field that we have that was under irrigation.
Right, yeah, after corn, and then when there's moisture there, that's when scab's going to show up. So, okay, we've talked a little bit about wheat. Let's talk about your next crop. Let's talk about corn or soybeans, you pick.
Okay, in the last 20 years, Jim, the corn and soybeans have been brought into our rotation on dry land. Prior to that, it was just strictly grain sorghum and alfalfa. But I feel like the Roundup Ready technology and some of the increased yield potential on dry land played a factor in us making that decision. And I like it for several reasons. And one being, we all know that crop rotation is going to enhance yields, assuming you can get the moisture.
Right.
But the other thing that we look at is it's another way for me to spread the risk, and also an operation like mine where the boys tend to disappear when school starts.
Right,
it's a way for me to spread the workload out so that I can get by with a minimum amount of hired labor.
Right. Okay. Well, good deal. So, okay, let's take us through your rotation on your dry land. Wheat. You said you had corn, grain sorghum, soybeans, and alfalfa. Where do you fit the alfalfa into it?
Normally, what we like to do is we follow wheat with alfalfa and sow that alfalfa this time of the year. I prefer sometime around the Labor Day holiday to sow alfalfa.
Yeah, because we get a rain sometimes around State Fair time.
Normally we get that. We've been a little short in that category this year. But we always have to be thinking ahead, Jim, on our herbicide use. And so any wheat ground that would have received finesse last winter is probably not a good candidate to be coming in with alfalfa right now. So we have to be looking ahead, maybe 2 or 3 cropping seasons as we try to make these decisions.
Right. Okay, so is your ground tilled before alfalfa, or do you do no till?
Actually, when we're doing alfalfa, I till the ground. I like to have a firm seed bed.
Weed-free, of course. Weed-free
and debris-free to sow the alfalfa, and that's how we've had the best luck here.
Okay, so do you do, you've soil tested, do you worry about your pH? Do you have pH problems here? I know some of your neighbors are down, in that low 5s and into the 4s, or is that the time for you to soil test and lime at that time?
Actually, with alfalfa, been in the rotation for the last several decades, we've always had to take a hard look at the soil pH and lime requirement with alfalfa in the rotation. So following wheat, that's one of the first things that's done. Normally, if we know we're going to alfalfa, we have that sample pulled the year before, and we're able to get something done with a lime immediately after wheat harvest. I like to have a soil pH between 6 and 7 to grow alfalfa.
So if you take a soil test, prior to the wheat crop, and it's below 6, 5, 8 or so, is that when you pull the trigger for between the wheat and the alfalfa the next year then?
Yes, if it's below 6, I want to see that pH maintained above 6, and so we start making plans to have the lime brought in and spread then.
Okay, good. Don't go away. We need to stop here for a second for a word from our sponsors, and you folks at home, stay where you are. We'll be right back.
Tar Waters has what you need for all seasons for around the farm and home. Working, hunting, growing, feeding, snow removal, even fun for the kids. And a service department with experienced techs to help keep your equipment in top running condition. Tar Waters has a huge selection and the best prices. Tar Water Farm and Home, family owned and operated since 1978. They have what you need.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Hello friends, I'm Ernie Rodina.
And I'm Dawn Dawson with the Better Horses Radio Show.
For over 9 years, we've been bringing the Better Horses Radio Show to markets all across the Midwest. We talk about God, lots about horses.
We talk about cows, we talk about horse health, we talk to top trainers, and we even talk about Roy Rogers.
We're having a blast with Better Horses Radio Show and would love to take it to a market near you.
So visit our website at betterhorsesradio.com and let us or your local radio station know you'd like to hear it in your area.
The Better Horses Radio Show is unbelievable.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Shroyer. We're in Sedgwick County on the Kent Winter Farm. And Kent, thanks for staying with us. Let's talk a little bit more about your alfalfa here. Let's talk about your yield goals for the year. Of course, that's going to be weather dependent on everything else. But let's talk about what size bales you have here and when you cut. So
right now, Jim, we're looking at some 3x3x8 bales. I share a baler with a neighbor, a large square baler, and we've gone to this in the last several years. I still have small square balers and the equipment to put up small square hay. I use that to supply the hay for the local zoo here in Wichita and also some horse customers.
Right.
But that primarily has to be first cutting alfalfa in order to avoid the blister beetle.
That's what I was going to say, no blister beetles on that first cutting.
Right. But in this package, the hay, let's just face it, the hay comes off the field a lot quicker than it does small squares. Also, if it's damaged hay, if it's rained on, why I can market the stuff in 3x3x8 bales a lot easier than I could with small squares.
Okay. And this cutting right here represents what?
This is fourth cutting alfalfa.
That's pretty good.
Right
What do you normally shoot for? How many cuttings?
Normally I'm happy with 4, but I should say that it's been so dry since July 4th that there weren't very many bales of fourth cutting. There wasn't very much tonnage for fourth cutting. It was a deal with, it was just tall enough for us to go after and get it off the field. Normally we like to keep our hay or keep our fields in alfalfa 6, 7, maybe 8 years. And we usually follow alfalfa. We kill it, we spray it to kill it in the midsummer and then come back with wheat that fall, assuming we have normal moisture.
Now, where do you market? You talked about your small bales going to horse people and zoos, but what about your big bales?
The big bales, the last couple of years, we've had good luck going out to Pratt, a pellet operation out there, and that operation also markets hay straight to some dairies also.
Don't go away. We've got to have a word here from our sponsors. And you folks at home, don't go away. We'll be right back.
This is the fast track to more jobs and America's energy independence. Advanced performance is here, now. Biodiesel, America's advanced biofuel.
Tallgrass Commodities offers producers bulk commodities at a reasonable price with reliable service throughout the whole Midwest. To find out more about Tallgrass Commodities, visit tallgrass.us or call 785-494-8484.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back, folks, to That's My Farm. We're in Sedgwick County. We've got Kent Winter here, and we're standing in a sorghum field. Kent, so how does sorghum fit into your rotation?
Jim, I really like sorghum. We've always had it here since I was a little boy. It works very well for rotation with wheat. And what I like about it, it's my stress fighter. It's my drought fighter. This stuff headed out a week, 10 days ago, and it's been very, very dry since, so it's waiting on a rain as we speak. Meanwhile, my dryland soybeans have really, really suffered the last couple of weeks, and I've lost a lot of yield potential there. Right. But I'm still very much in the ball game here if some of these rain chances can materialize later on this week. So it helps in the rotation to clean up any cheat issues I have with the wheat. Right. So we normally leave it in grain sorghum for a couple of years, and we'll either lay it out over the winter and come in with another spring crop, or we'll, it's rare that we can double crop back to wheat because the sorghum comes off so too late in the fall.
As compared to corn or soybeans, right?
That's correct. So the other thing I really like about it is the residue it leaves behind. I've got very good cover, very good protection on the soil going through the winter and into the spring.
Okay, let's talk about when you like to plant and seeding rate, and kind of compare that to say corn.
My normal planting date for milo is, I really like that June 15th to 20th time frame.
That's good.
Granted, we're also cutting wheat at that time, and normally second cutting alfalfa is hitting then, but I like it because it delays the heading period till later in the summer, where in a normal year we have a better shot at some rain and some cooler temperatures.
In late August, early September.
Yes,
right.
Yes. And the other thing I like about it is it spreads my workload out, especially with the fall harvest. And the other thing I like about it is it's very economical to grow compared to some of the other crops. My outlay for seed here was something like $8 an acre. My seeding rate is normally 32,000 plants per acre.
Right, and corn prices are, a bag of corn is pretty pricey these days.
Bag of corn on a per acre basis, it was running me around $50 an acre for seed last spring.
Right, okay. What about fertility? What do you shoot for in fertility?
Well, we take soil samples and see if there's any residual nitrogen from the year before, but normally we're shooting for a yield goal of somewhere in that 80 to 100 bushel per acre range, and we can do better than that if we get the right moisture. Right. So I am looking at my carryover nitrogen that shows up in the soil test, and I'm trying to have on roughly 1.2 units of nitrogen for my yield goal.
Okay, 1.2 units you're adding, or 1.2 what you add plus what's in the soil?
Actually, for total nitrogen available to the crop, I'm incorporating what shows up in the soil sample into that formula.
Okay, good deal. Let's talk about weed control a little bit. How are you doing on there?
On the weed control, so far, we try to be careful on what fields we plant our milo on. If we've got a pigweed situation, we try to avoid that. Right. But I'm using a bicep type herbicide pre-emerge, and we were fortunate enough this year to have good rains to incorporate that.
They're in June.
Yes. And so we had pretty good weed control on most of our fields. There was one field where our control was not as good, and so I had to revert back to 1960s technology and get the corn knives out.
Oh dear.
And the kids and I had to go give it our best shot.
Okay. Well, Kent, I tell you what, I think it's about time that we kind of wrap this up, and I want to thank you for taking this time today, and make sure you watch the show here in a few weeks. So thanks for joining us, and folks, you at home, thank you for joining us, and don't forget, we're going to be coming to you every Friday on That's My Farm. So thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.